Hello, everybody. Welcome back to
Steve.
Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line. Happy Canada Day. Happy Free Agency. I'm here, joined by my lovely co-host,
Marcie.
here in person. It's so funny because I think to audio listeners, this sounds exactly the same.
But with less of me just cutting out random lines.
Yeah. But like this sounds exactly the same. But this episode is going to go up on YouTube. Like the video version is. So we are in the same room.
Same room.
Unlike the draft, we are centralized.
The podcast is centralized.
We are in the same,
it should be.
As it should be. I have about like 4 pages worth of notes to go through, which I feel like now everyone can hear me flipping through pages. But to go through to talk about news because it is July 1, which means free agency. There are still some names left on the board. The biggest one being Nikolai Ehlers, which everyone's saying could be tomorrow, could be later next week. Who knows with him? But I can start into the news that happened yesterday because we put out an episode on Sunday, and then there was news that happened afterwards.
Yeah.
And
for the different days were really throwing me off.
God forbid we plan around our own schedules and the NHL schedule. We rejigged the schedule for this because we probably would have just recorded on our normal days and then had a massive post-free agency episode on Thursday with more names to talk about. But I think, I don't know where to, because we had our reaction to the Matthew Nyes extension in the last episode. And go back. Listen to that. It was incredible. I think our point still stands. That deal only officially went through this morning, which is really funny because it was like a full day of like nothing. And everyone's like, did you forget?
It's like, probably.
But then yesterday, Leafs did do something. They re-signed Steven Lorentz to a 3-year deal with a cap hit of 1.35.
Stevie.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Like Brad Treliving, 1.35 is my favorite number.
Oh, yes.
That's a great number. I just think for what Steven Lorentz brings, which is, I think he had 5 or 6 game-winning goals throughout the season last year, out of like 9. Like the percentage of goals that he scored to goals that were game-winning goals was like something ridiculous if you look at it. And I like him on the fourth line for Toronto. He grew up a Leafs fan, has that passion factor or whatever you want to call the intangible that is just adding Leaf fans to your roster and hoping maxing out on that. But I like it. It's good. He stays. It's also one of those numbers where like Bobby McMann is getting paid the same amount. Simon Benoit is getting paid the same amount. Yeah. Ryan Reeves is getting paid the same amount. But there's like now we've got 4 contracts at the same cap hit. It's a good, solid number for those type of players. I mean, obviously, you could maybe even argue Bobby McMann's worth more, but you're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth there on that one. So, love it from Lorentz. Like, I think even that fourth line during the playoffs was great.
Yeah.
And fantastic. And, some of it is just, and I think we even said that, we've said it on the podcast too, just didn't have a high-end finisher, which they're the fourth line. They're not supposed to have a high-end finisher. Yeah. That's not their jig, but even just the way they play both ends of the ice was great, and they will continue to do that next season. And I think now, you got Scott Laughton there to start the season, and I think that always helps with smoothing things out. I don't know what you do with David Kampf. That's a question, and because we'll get to that, there's a signing in here, right? I think. Why do I think the Leafs we're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There's so much here. So we're just gonna move on. Yeah. There was news also as well. I don't know when to slot in this. I'll slot it in now. Alex Pietrangelo will to undergo multiple surgeries. There was something about like a bilateral hip reduction, which I looked into. Looks extremely painful, and he is out for at least the 25-26 season. Could be his career. Then today, in an unrelated press conference, which we will get to that, Kelly McCrimmon, who is the GM for Vegas, said that he is most likely done, which is unfortunate. I think he put out a statement and he said, like, I just want to get a life back, right? And a level of comfort. And it's unfortunate to end your career that way. That always sucks, no matter who it is. And I think we talked about that. I've talked about that in depth with Logan Couture on multiple different platforms.
Yeah.
But it sucks when that's the way you go out as a hockey player, for sure. Morgan Geekie signs a 6-year, $5.5 million extension with the Boston Bruins. Well-deserved after a career-high 33 goals last season in Boston. I love that. I think that's great. He was like on an extremely valuable deal before this. Now he's probably getting paid what he's worth if he continues with that production and is just like a regular 30-some goal scorer.
Yeah.
6 years is great because he's not that much on the old side. I actually don't know how old Morgan Geekie is. I only know how old Connor Geekie is. Morgan Geekie. 26. Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Great. Yeah, 26. That's 32. I've been on the math thing. You can tell I did Kumon through middle school. Also as well, Kasperi Kapanen signs a 1-year, $1.3 million extension with the Edmonton Oilers. Love that. Good for Kasperi Kapanen. Big moment goal guy. Like, his Wikipedia page is the funniest thing to me because it's very, like, you think, oh, it's Kasperi Kapanen. Hasn't had, like, the biggest, or, like, he's not the biggest player ever, except so much of his Wikipedia page is just, like, big goal that he scored. You know, World Juniors winner for Finland against Russia in 2016, the gold medal game. That was huge. That's also my favorite. Like, that's the funniest one to me is, like, the, like, Kasperi Kapanen. Like, it's because it's one of those things where it's like Finland hadn't won a World Juniors for so long, and they were in the gold medal game against Russia. That World Juniors was in Finland, and the guy who scores the game-winning goal in OT against Russia for Finland at World Juniors is Kasperi Kapanen, which is why, like, he was then so highly valued in Toronto. Like, he was like kind of a shining prospect in Toronto for a very long time. Like, it was like always him and William Nylander too were like the two. They were like almost seen as equals for a very long time, especially with the Marlies. Won a Calder there, but was claimed off waivers by Edmonton from St. Louis for him to get an extension, huge, pretty great. Yeah, I like it. Moving on, there was another trade as well last night. Nashville acquired Nicholas Hague and a conditional 2027 third-round pick from Vegas Golden Knights for Jeremy Lauzon and Colton Sissons at 50% retained salary by Nashville. Nashville gets a defenseman. Vegas clears a little bit of cap space.
Everyone's happy.
It's one of those trades where it's like, sure. It's a trade. Like, there's no, it's like a net trade. It's just like everyone kind of gets what they're looking for in a trade, and you may not see the hockey as equal, but situationally it's pretty good for the two teams. The other one, this one I think is a funny situation though, if we're talking about trades. Minnesota acquires Vladimir Tarasenko from the Detroit Red Wings with no retained salary for future considerations. It's funny because it happened yesterday, and if it had happened today, Vladimir Tarasenko just went to Minnesota with no, like, for nothing, and they just sent him there, and they were like, have fun moving to Minnesota. But because it happened yesterday, it means that Vladimir Tarasenko, because he had a no move on that year of his deal yesterday, before all the contracts rolled over, he had a full no move clause. So he had to okay this. He probably was like, I don't want to be in Detroit, which is, like, Detroit maybe was looking to clear up cap space for what? I don't know, considering the moves they made later today. It was very interesting. It was a very weird day. They had, like, a lot of space already, and then they cleared up more by getting rid of Tarasenko at, like, I think he's a 5-ish mil cap hit. And just for nothing. Like, it seems almost like Tarasenko had some leverage because he had a full no move. So they were like, do you want to go to Minnesota? And he's probably like, yes, I want to play with Kirill Kaprizov. Fair enough as a Russian. Like, I want to go play, like, right? And Kirill Kaprizov gets to play with a Russian which he hasn't had a lot of opportunity to do in Minnesota. But so good on that part. No retention there, Minnesota. Find some cap space this season more than they had last year because they had like a couple of really big years on buyouts run out. Like there was there was a couple. I was like, because their buyout situation last year was so stupid. As someone who's looked into it, I was like, what are you doing? Suter was one of them where I was like, it was like he was like 7 million there. There was someone else too. I think it was Zach Parise was a big hit there, and a lot of those I have now gone into like where it's like $800,000 instead of like 5 or 6 million. So they found some fun cap space, and also as well like their backup will be Wallstead, who was getting paid less than Fleury even, so your goalie situation even so, or at least you get less there and then money moves around. But I don't know, I just think it's really interesting for him to be like, I don't know if he asked for a trade. If he asked for a trade, that's like the third time in his career, because he asked for a trade out of New York, or at least he wanted out of New York, went to Ottawa, asked for a trade out of Ottawa, but he had a full no move, so he was like, well, I'll only go play in Florida. Got to Florida and then now has signed in Detroit and has been like, maybe has asked for a trade out of Detroit, or at least has been like, I will only like full no move, I will go here. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Toronto did do a trade as well. They acquired Matthias Michelli from the Utah Mammoth for a conditional 2027 third round pick. The condition is it becomes a second round pick if Toronto makes the playoffs and Michelli scores 51 points, which is such a weird number because his career high is 57. He's hit 49 before. I don't know where the 51 came from. I don't know if they were like, 51 points. That's our arbitrary number, because it's not even, I don't know if it was like based on like his, I guess if you add all the points he's gotten, it's an like all of his NHL points and then divided by his games played or seasons played or something, it's like some average that they get. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. That's just the number. Depends on where he plays in the lineup. 51 points may not be hard for him to accomplish. We will see. He plays on the left side. I believe he also can play center, flexible forward, strong in front of the net. At 3.75, I believe is the cap hit, somewhere in that range. Yeah. Which I've always said, Leafs need to find value in that $3 to $7 million range in the salary cap span on their roster, and so potentially adds value there. There's a year left on his deal, so it's kind of a buy low, potentially profit, sell high. Who knows?
Yeah.
But left side looks pretty full. I will say that. Like, for as weak of that side that was at some point, walking down nice, get Michelli. You could move William Nylander back there if you want. You could also play on the right, depends on what other pieces you acquire. Steven Lorentz is on that side. So.
Looking busy.
Another news, New York Islanders re-sign Alexander Romanov to an 8-year, $6.25 million extension.
Sure.
It's a deal. Contract.
It is it's a contract.
It's a contract. Here's a couple of ones with Florida, though, that I take back me saying something about Florida not being able to afford all three of them, but I will say, though, they got all three signed. They are not under the cap hit. They then continue to spend more money and are way over the cap hit and need to potentially, they still have to fill holes, obviously, and also potentially have to trade someone before the season starts. The two I'm referring to is Aaron Ekblad signs an 8-year, $6.1 million extension with the Florida Panthers. lower money than you expected for your Nick Lad. Huge discount there taken by him because he could have easily made a lot more out on the open market. But he does get that 8-year term. That, you know, all right. But it's especially, it like really seems like a low number, like a big discount for him to take when you look at then Brad Marchand signing with the Florida Panthers for a 6-year, $5.25 million extension. Yeah, Florida's out of cap space now. And also as well, Brad Marchand, that 6 years takes him till he's 43, which the last 43-year-old player to be in the NHL is Jaromir Jagr. Jaromir Jagr's a freak of nature.
Yeah, it's not like you get in like every couple of years.
Not everyone's a Jaromir Jagr.
Not everyone can be Emma and Marcie.
No. And like it's interesting because last year, that makes me nervous when my
not me or you.
No, it's me, but it's just about Mackenzie retiring. Makes me nervous every time now.
He's like,
I turned my phone off, do not disturb just for today, like when I was home for the first time in like probably about 3 months. And I was like, this is too many notifications. I don't like this anymore. But yeah, Brad Marchand signed until he's 43, which
sure.
It's just the league put out kind of a warning, like, hey, you know, if you're signing long-term deals with older players to get lower AAV, be careful about doing the good old play half the contract, then you get put on LTIR for the rest of it, frees up cap space. Because I strongly doubt, even with the way the salary cap is expected and projected to go up in the next 3, let alone 6 years, 5.25 is still going to be a lot for 40, 41, 42, and 43-year-old Brad Marchand. Like and again, could apologize to Brad Marchand in about 4 years. No. But I don't think he can play at that value.
No.
Well, like, maybe he can. I just don't see it. Just because there's the last player we had to play in the league in his 40s was Mark Giordano. And even his last season, he seemed to have lost, like, his 40 season, he lost huge step, battled injury. Like, some of that's concussion, where you're just like, meh. But battle injury, his recovery process, we saw hints of that through, like, blueprints and stuff.
Yeah.
Was excessive and extensive. So I don't know. We will see. Evan Bouchard, though, signs a 4-year, $10.5 million extension with the Edmonton Oilers. Good. People there's some sticker shock on that, just because, again, I think a lot of GMs are operating with the rising cap because they've never known that they've never known what the cap is going to be 3 years out, or at least a projected model of it, and it could be more than the projected model because it's all based on league revenue, and how that increases. But also as well, I just think that this is like, it's one of those ones people are not used to the sticker shock, but also as well, just some people are a little bit torn on Evan Bouchard as a player.
Yeah.
I still am sometimes, okay? Because like you see him turn up in certain moments and you're like, yes, that is why Evan Bouchard is as highly regarded as he is as a defenseman by some people. But then sometimes you just watch him and the like extreme lack of back check.
You're like,
and you're sitting there like, don't know if I love that. Don't know if I love that. But yes, the Ottawa Senators signed Levi Merilainen to a 1-year, $1.05 million extension. That's great. 1 year prove it deal. Really for the young goaltender. He's only 22. So you still have years of team control on him in terms of like, he's still an RFA. Like, he's not going anywhere. That's for sure. 1.05 is fine. Is that a corgi in a stroller?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cute. There's
Trace being pushed along, and I was like, this is gonna distract me.
It's like there's a window. My window's right up there, and we just saw a corgi being pushed along in a stroller. That's incredible. But prove it in the way that it is. His expectation is now as a goaltender to be a full-time NHL backup to Linus Ullmark, which you saw glimpses of him doing. He was almost playing like 5 or 6 games in a row on a regular basis when Ullmark was out with injury. Merilainen kind of had his like coming out party, I guess, within the NHL as like a 22-year-old, which is very young for a goaltender, especially in the NHL. Especially if he was not drafted that high up either. Like it wasn't like he was a first-round draft pick. I think he was somewhere in the 4th or 5th round, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that expectation's on him, and I think, you know, if he does prove himself, he could see himself get a longer term contract next season. For sure, because Mads Søgaard does not have the same promise as he does in terms of playing in the NHL full time. I mean, Ottawa still kind of does have to rejuvenate, or they have to start working on Operation What Comes Next After Allmark, which is kind of a scary thing to think about. I think it's a scary thing. There's time, but like I would have thought that they would have maybe done it this draft with Ravensburgen in the draft, because he was available when they picked at 23. But Ravensburgen got picked at 31 and is now in San Jose. But I thought that would have been a perfect project for them in terms of talent. Size is there. Just needs to iron out some rough edges. But, you know, and he would have been, because goalie development's always like, until you're like looking at, if you want like a full-time goaltender, you're kind of looking at a 7 to 8 year timeline on average. So would have been perfect.
Yeah.
But LA Kings sign Andrei Kuzmenko to a 1-year, $4.3 million extension. Love that. That's great.
Good for him.
Good for Andrei. I love that for both sides. This is a contract I do not love. Ivan Provorov re-signs with the Columbus Blue Jackets for 7 years at $8.5 million. That is high.
That is too many pennies.
I think that's too much money for what Provorov is. We'll be totally, completely honest. I don't love that one. That's a little high.
No.
The Ottawa Senators re-signed with Nick Cousins. Ottawa Senators re-sign Nick Cousins for a 1-year deal at $825,000. He had a knee injury that kind of derailed the second half of the season. He came back to play in the playoffs. Bottom 6 is looking crowded in Ottawa now at this point. It's fine. Like, whatever. That money, you can't really go wrong with something that's, you know, $50,000 over league min for what Nick Cousins is, which is annoying. I don't think he's going to get his spot back up on that third line with Greg and Pinto like he had for quite a long stretch last season. I think that spot kind of now belongs to Michael Amadio. But Nick Cousins definitely could add something through the bottom 6 as either on the 4th line or as a 13th forward. You know, at that money, having him as a 13th forward isn't the worst thing in the world. So another one too is the Carolina Hurricanes trade a 2026 7th round pick to the Montreal Canadiens for the signing rights of Kaden Primo, and then they signed him to an extension. Carolina has a lot of goalies now. Like a lot. Because they drafted a couple. Yeah. They drafted quite a few at the draft.
They're just like me.
And also as well, still have Freddie Anderson. And like, it's not like they're NHL. Like, they are one of, like, it's not like A, they were looking for a goaltender. And it's not like B, they like didn't have it. Like, their goalies are not good.
But God forbid a girl wants to collect goalies.
Eric Tulsky.
God forbid a girl wants a goalie collection.
The Detroit Red Wings re-signed Patrick Kane for a 1-year, $3 million extension with $4 million available in performance bonuses, with majority of that coming with 10 games played. That I like looked at the bonus structure. I was like, am I reading that right? Is that like, it's like $2.5 million, I think, is if you plays more than 10 games. Which at that point, considering the fact that everyone's like, I don't know if he's gonna come back from that hip surgery, and then he did. Why don't you just give him the 5.5?
Yeah.
why, like, maybe it's, for tax reasons and stuff, because bonuses, like I've said before, do get taxed differently than, like, salary. Maybe it's for the, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe it's, like, for the fact that it then spreads out the cap hits, because then the performance bonus you don't have to pay until next season. Maybe that's a reason. That's a tactic we're seeing with the way the cap's going up. Like, the fact that the cap, you're like, okay, well then it'll just, like, eat away at some of what we get next year, and then we still get, like, the same amount of money to play with. Who knows? Are you seeing what's next? I'm seeing what's next.
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about this now. This was kind of this happened yesterday. It happened first thing today. It was very heavily rumored. We talked about it last episode a little bit. It involves with tampering. I don't think that's any of those accusations are going to go through, because Mitch Marner is now I almost said London, right?
Come back. Once a night, always a night.
Once a night, always a night. Honestly,
I miss him so much.
Once a night, always a night. He is now a Vegas Golden Knight. Mitch Marner. It was a sign and trade, so he signed an 8-year, $12 million deal. Technically, he signed with Toronto, which is really gonna look really silly on Puckpedia because it's gonna say that it's signed with Toronto. It was signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. There is a full no move clause on that deal, though, which I would have thought would have been so flippin' funny if he would have then refused to, like, report to Canada stuff. If then, like, signed it full no move, and then either he was like, I'm not going to Vegas.
Yeah, it's like, sorry.
Or, like, Brown was like, not gonna trade you.
He's like, sorry, there's no movement.
But then he was then traded to Vegas Golden Knights 1-for-1 with Nick Roy, who apparently, in his media availability with Toronto media, said that he was a Toronto Maple Leafs fan growing up until about 11 or 12, when Matt Sundin left Toronto to go to Vancouver, and then he became a Habs fan, which I think so many, like, I was like, what is this, like, ongoing trend of acquiring Leaf fans? It's really funny.
Watch out, they're gonna sign us next.
Hey, we've been saying for over a year.
Canada.
We've said this for over a year that we should be the Leafs bad guys in the locker room.
Yeah, there's a reason I came to Canada on July 1st, and it wasn't just to see her. Surprise! This is my announcement. I am the Leafs.
I will say, on the Mitch Marner side of things, it's better for the player.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
Better for the player.
It is a very tough spot in the lineup to fill. Big skates there. The biggest question is, what does Toronto do now? That's a huge spot on your right side that, unfortunately, for Max Domi cannot fill. I'm sick of the suggestions of Max Domi is there. Put Max Domi there, because Max Domi is not that caliber of player who can play there.
Like, I'm not being funny, but for everyone that's been like, oh, Max Domi can do it. If I give you the option of Max Domi or Mitch Marner, you're gonna pick
Mitch Marner.
You're not gonna go for Max Domi.
Yeah.
Like, he's not good. He's really bad.
Yeah. And it's the other thing too, and it's one of those things that I think I mentioned it when the Leafs played in Ottawa this season, during the regular season, in that game that I went to, where Matthew Knies was out, and it was Bobby McMahon up on that top line. And this was not at all a diss against Bobby McMahon. No. Bobby McMahon did fine in that role, but it was obvious that he doesn't have the step that Matthew Knies did in those situations. Like, it was just obvious, and maybe it was a lack of chemistry or lack of practice, in which you can make up for if you have the practice and have the repetition, as like Max Domi will get through the season then, if that's where you put him. But there also is like a thing where it was like, Bobby McMahon just isn't that guy.
No,
he's not Matthew Knies.
Okay.
And that's perfectly fine, and you don't have to be that guy, and there was never an expectation on Bobby McMahon to be that guy. He obviously was there with a spot to fill, and it's why I think, and it's still an important role to fill. It's why I think that, player type like Alex Kerfoot, which is just a forward who can play anywhere, is huge and important. And my favorite team. It's why I love the Alex Kerfoot type of player. That you can, it's like just a forward who can play. A forward who can play anywhere in your lineup. Yeah. You need that. You need that. Calle Yarncroke is kind of there. I just always like saying it's Alex Kerfoot because it's Alex Kerfoot.
Yeah.
But I will say though, 1-for-1 with it's the thing where like I really do hope that, you know, like the fans or the media or whoever doesn't put the expectation on Nick Roy to be like a Mitch Marner replacement, because it's a 1-for-1 trade, which makes the optic of like people are gonna go back. Because I do this all the time on Hockey DB, is I go back and I get trades and I look at, like, I hit the show trades button on Hockey DB on a player and I'm like, he was traded for this guy. Like, it's like the 1-for-1. What's the one? Who is it where there was like, it's like a ridiculous 1-for-1 and he's on the Leafs now. And I've like looked at it so many times and I was like, this was a 1-for-1.
I feel like you've definitely mentioned it to me before.
Oh, I've mentioned it on the show where I've gone back and I've looked.
Because it's ringing, I can't remember who.
If I looked at like Leafs roster on Hockey DB.
It'll come back to you.
Oh, it's especially if I just like look at the guy's name if I see it. Oh, it was Fleet Myers.
Sorry.
He's the one where it was like, it wasn't a 1-for-1, but it was like the things where like he was involved in the Nolan Patrick trade and also the Ryan McDonagh trade. Like it's those sort of things where it's like there's just the
like,
guy.
What are you doing here? Where
I was like, what are you? Yeah, or it's like it's also the like Nolan Patrick 1-for-1 with Cody Glass. Right? It's ridiculous. It's one of those ones that's ridiculous.
I'm sure that it's like, are you lost?
And it's like, it's also really fun when you go back to like pre-salary cap era trades where they were just sending guys. And you're looking at some of these trades and you're like, sure, whatever.
Why
not? This makes sense. Like some old like Harold Ballard era Leafs trades, you're like, you sir, we're trying not to pay anyone any money for salaries, and it shows. It shows here, and I think, but like I'm not saying that's what Brad Living is doing, and I understand like there's a difference. This wasn't essentially like a value exchange trade. Like it's not like the Leafs were ever going, like not in this situation. They may have in other situations gotten a return that's of equal or same value, or equal or greater value than Mitch Marner, but they were never going to in this situation. This is simply them avoiding going after the Vegas Golden Knights for tampering, and B, getting something in return for Mitch Marner, knowing he was going to walk either way.
Yeah.
Like today, he was not, like July 1, Mitch Marner was not going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. We knew, like, I hate to say this, I think, you know, we were kind of living in the if not when scenario here as well. You try to keep the hope up when you can, but I think it was kind of a reality that really set in, I think, even almost before the end of last season.
Yeah, where you're saying just like, I don't know. He's gone.
But no, he's gone. And like, I don't know, it's again, it's silly in the situation. It makes sense. It's a 1-for-1. You don't get, but like, it still looks silly. It still looks dumb. And it's like one of those things that if you don't understand the full nuance of the entire situation and like don't know the way the trade panned out, just seeing it as a 1-for-1 looks crazy and looks kind of ridiculous. And but you know, at the end of the day, Mitch Marner picked what's best for his family. He had a press conference today. His first as a Vegas Golden Knight. I will say, though, he is wearing number 93 on the Knights, which, you know, is the number he wore in juniors as a London Knight, which I saw that and I went, oh, okay.
Which could mean nothing.
Hey, means 16 is available for Easton Cowan.
It's a little victory.
Which I tweeted that out, and people were like, "Hey, too soon." And I was like, "Well, someone's got to say it eventually."
You're basically like, now guess who's never gonna play with Mitch Marner?
Easton Cowan. Which
Gonna hurt.
I think it's like his first game back in Toronto is going to be interesting because it's going to be unfortunate because it's so silly that it's exactly 10 years today as well that Phil Kessel was traded to Pittsburgh. There's some narratives, there's some sort of similar things going on with just a player that was good and was successful, but unfortunately was heavily criticized by Toronto media and the fan base and was used as a scapegoat in situations when the opportunity arose and ultimately left. And in the case of Phil Kessel, eventually went on to win the Stanley Cup as a Vegas Golden Knight after winning back-to-back Stanley Cups as a Pittsburgh Penguin immediately following being traded. Traded summer of 2015, July 1st, was a Stanley Cup champion that next season in 2016, won another one in 2017, and then won one in 2023 as a Vegas Golden Knight.
Well, I hope Vegas enjoys winning the Cup next year.
Congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights on their Stanley Cup of 2020.
You heard it here first.
They're 2026 or 2027. I said within the next 2 years, and that's what I've always said.
Yeah, you heard it here first. We were just really early.
This is I'm gonna clip this if they do and be like, told you so. July 1st, 2025, I'm saying it now. But yeah, he said it was best from him. He said, the one thing I will say, whereas in Toronto, it seems like a lot of the pressure was external outside the organization of the Toronto Maple Leafs, where it was fans, it was the media. I think when you get to a team like Vegas that's known for running the team as they do, they just have a philosophy internally within that organization as they do, that if you don't perform and they don't feel like you are necessary, they will cut you loose.
Yeah.
Whether you have a full no move clause or not.
They'll make it happen.
They're not afraid of they're not afraid of playing with house money there. They operate like the city they play in. Absolutely. There's similarities there for sure. And there's now internal pressure. Whereas instead maybe, the fan pressure or maybe, the media pressure won't be as big, but the pressure from coaching staff, front office is going to be way bigger because there's an expectation of winning. Not to say that there wasn't an expectation of winning in Toronto, but with a very almost, Jack Eichel's still there, very similarly built core in Vegas. And even higher talent there with Hurdle and, other pieces. There's an expectation to win.
Yeah.
And they haven't quite done it in recent years. So, after winning the Cup. So, we will see. I will say, I think probably my favorite, I hate to say that I have a favorite quote out of that Mitch Marner press conference with Kelly McCrimmon, but I do love the fact that someone asked him about, hey, what's it going to be like having Mitch Marner and a notable playmaker and Jack Eichel there on the same line. And McCrimmon says, well, someone has to shoot. And I think that's hilarious. I will say we have talked about how this season has kind of proven that Mitch Marner, reminded everyone that Mitch Marner does have a wicked shot, can score goals, because he scored quite a few this year with Austin Matthews the way that he was and not scoring as many. So we'll see. I will say 2015 draft, out of everything with the 2015 draft, which was 10 years ago, I guess now, the fact that it's now Mitch Marner and Jack Eichel on the same team is kind of...
That was you. I thought we were both just checking.
Oh, it's just thank you to Noah Juleson, who signed in Philadelphia. So yeah, that's the Mitch Marner discussion that we're kind of throwing into the middle of this. Yeah. Fun little treat in the middle. Mitch Marner discussion. We're going through this as we read through a list that's kind of chronologically done. Through it's actually pretty well done chronologically as news came out throughout the day.
I am having to squint to try and read your writing, and that's on me for losing my glasses.
I was gonna say it's not even that small. Sometimes it's smaller in this notebook. It's not that small. I was doing so much writing today that it kind of got a little big near the end. But yes, Vancouver. No, I'm gonna jump up here. Thomas Nozick signs a 1-year deal at $775,000, which is league min with the Florida Panthers. Again, throwing them back over the cap because they were already over with Brad Marchand, and
Yeah.
here they go again, over again, because they also re-signed Tarasov to another deal that they acquired in a trade from Columbus. They are over the cap. Simply put, they are over the cap, and they still have Sam Siskevich left to sign as an RFA. They have to refill or find a way to fill Nate Schmidt's hole in the lineup because he was a huge asset to the blue line, and he's gone. We'll talk to that. But the Vancouver Canucks re-signed Thatcher Demko to a 3-year, $8.5 million extension. There's yes, I know it's a 3-year deal. 8.5 seems like a lot. Yes, I know Thatcher Demko is Vezina caliber, but also he never quite. Again, maybe an off season will fix that. We will never know kind of how an off season balances things out for a player when they're coming back from an injury. But like, he wasn't great when he came back. Kevin Lankinen ended up kind of taking care of the crease in Vancouver through the end of the season. And I don't know. I just, even at 3 years, 8.5 seems like a lot, especially because Lankinen is already making quite a fair bit of money. I believe that puts them up around 12, 13 million for goaltending, which is heavy when it's not, hey, look at us, we have Sergei Bobrovsky and we're paying him $10 million.
Yeah.
Which is what Florida has.
Like, if it was, I don't know, that's a lot of money for what they've got.
It is. It is. Especially when they have other ways they can spend it.
Yeah.
Essentially. Vancouver also re-signs Connor Garland to a 6-year, $6 million extension. Sure. Okay.
No complaints?
I don't think so. This one is a little, not preemptive, but I should say gets done before it was needed to. But Logan Stankoven signs an 8-year, $6 million extension with the Carolina Hurricanes. That will kick in for the 26-27 season. So you get your RFA. They acquired that in the Mikko Rantanen trade. Second time he was traded to Dallas last year at the deadline. And it seems like he's going to stick around in Carolina. He fit in really well there in that lineup, which is good. And for what Logan Stankoven is, love that. That's great. He's a young guy. I think that carries him through, I think he's 21, 22. Yes. Because his World Juniors is not that long ago. This is how I do this. I think he's in around the same age as Matthew Nyes. He could be older. No, he's 22. So good at this game. I'm so good at this game. Because what World Juniors is it? It's, the 22 and the 23 World Juniors. So he was both Bedard World Juniors.
You're so smart.
I'm so good at this.
You're so smart.
I'm so good at this. But yeah, so then 22 takes him through to 28. So he'll be a UFA when that contract expires, but $6 million, rising cap. Great. Love it.
Yep.
Good job, Eric Tulsky. Especially because it's done before, like, you even have to really worry about it. Done as soon as it can get done. Yeah, essentially.
You don't have to think about it anymore.
You don't have to think about it, no. So you have him now for 9 more years. Because you have him this season, and then you have 8 more after.
That's good.
Which is good. So then, so it'll be his 29th year season, which is... Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it'll be, The Edmonton Oilers traded Victor Arvidsson to the Boston Bruins for a 2027 5th-round pick. This is free up cap space. Wasn't quite clicking up with Leon Draisaitl, so...
Something had to happen.
Something had to happen, yeah. This is an interesting one, though. The New Jersey Devils signed Jake Allen to a 5-year, $1.8 million extension. Takes the biggest goalie free agent off the board, at I think this was announced at 11 in the morning. And I will say, I thought Jake Allen was way older than 34. Because I saw 5 years and I was going 5 years for Jake Allen. And I think you know why it is. Because he was on the Sportsnet he's been on the Sportsnet like playoff panels for the past 2 seasons. Once the Devils have, so I've been like thinking that they've kind of been like Mark Giordanoing, like soft launching him to be on the panel a little bit more, like to join the panel. And I was like, oh, it's because he's getting close to retirement. He's 34, so this will take him to 39, and at 1.8 is a hell of a steal. Yeah. For a goalie, for any goalie right now, because of how competitive the goalie market is. We have another trade as well. It was like leading up into, I think we've now hit like, well, we're almost like, I'm trying to base the timeline. Leading into like the free agency opening, I was like, this feels like a deadline, like a trade deadline. Because we have the Montreal Canadiens trading Logan Mailloux to the St. Louis Blues for Zach Balduc. Love this for Montreal because we have it from inside sources, aka friends of the show, who are Habs fans, that Logan Mailloux is not good, and there was no real pathway for his development in Montreal. They had a lot of very talented blue liners there, and they get a very solid forward in Zach Balduc, and they also get rid of kind of a icky person. Yeah, this is always like every time Logan Mailloux comes up in a conversation, I hate saying this to Habs fans because I'm like, I don't want to rub it into your face, but like, hey, reminder, when he was drafted, when he really shouldn't have been drafted, Olen Zellweger was still on the board. He went like 3 or 4 picks later to Anaheim in the second round, but he was still on the board. If you were looking for a defenseman, like I literally think that was the next defenseman selected was Olen Zellweger in the second round, like early in the second round, he was still on the board. Anyways, also as well, speaking of trades, the Chicago Blackhawks, we still have like 2 pages left to get through. The Chicago Blackhawks acquire Sam Lafferty, Leafs legend, from the Buffalo Sabres for a 2026 6th-round pick, which is so funny because every time he gets traded, I think the pick that he gets traded for is lower and lower in value every single time. I think when he went to Vancouver, it was like a 3rd-round pick or something that I believe it was.
Oh, bless him.
And then
yeah, look at him.
Still bald. I mean, he also has been getting older and like worse.
Bolder. Shinier?
Bald, shiner. Yeah, like, because he was part of the Jake McCabe trade. Kyle Dubas out of that whole deadline, and what you like would have expected, you would have been like, oh, Ryan O'Reilly, there would it. Jake McCabe was the Kyle Dubas masterclass of that deadline because of the 50% retained salary for like 2 years left on his deal. Re-signed an extension in Toronto, and he's Jake McCabe.
Jake McCabe. Bish, bosh, bosh.
A first and then a 2nd-round pick was what the Leafs paid. Essentially, there was a couple other picks thrown in there. And then he went for a 5th in the 2024 draft. And then when he was traded from Vancouver to Chicago, it was with Ilya Mikheyev, a 2nd-round pick in the 2027 draft and a 4th-round pick in the 2027 draft. And then he was signed by the Buffalo Sabres. And now the Buffalo Sabres are trading him back to Chicago for a 6th-round pick. So in total, and I understand that also like Jake McCabe is included in there, but in total for Sam Lafferty, out of this whole, if you were to create a Sam Lafferty trade tree, which is actually it'd be kind of a silly one because you know what's a great one on here? 1-for-1 from the Pittsburgh Penguins to Chicago Blackhawks with Alex Nylander. 1-for-1. Incredible stuff going on here. Incredible. The Sam Lafferty trade tree, incredible stuff.
Sam Lafferty league top.
Oh, because then you can like kind of loop in Ilya Mikheyev in here.
Which is always fun.
And then there's a fun little like offshoot there.
It's like, oh.
But yeah, in terms of like Chicago has gotten it, they also had to give up Jake McCabe and 2 5ths.
But still.
But Leafs the Chicago Blackhawks have gotten Pavel Gogolev, Joey Anderson, a 1st in the 2025 draft, and a second in the 2026 draft, and also as well but then they paid the 6th, and then Alex Nylander was another trade, wasn't he? And then they paid this. Anyways, there's a whole lot there. I'm not gonna like dive too well into that. Essentially, full circle there a little bit for Sam Lafferty moving back to Chicago. It's one of those trades that gave me a laugh.
It's like his hair is tall.
Hey, isn't he kind of a Taylor Swift guy? Did you not see that Sabres video? I think they mic'd up Sam Lafferty and he was singing Taylor Swift. I'll find it.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember now? Okay. Also as well, Colin Blackwell signs a 2-year, $775,000 extension with the Dallas Stars. Leafs legend. This was the first real news of the day. Christian Dvorak signs a 1-year, $5.4 million deal with the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm personally of the opinion that is way too much money to be spending on Christian Dvorak.
Yeah.
My personal opinion. There may be Habs and or Flyers fans that are saying, no, you're wrong, Emma, but...
You're never wrong.
I don't think well...
You're never wrong.
All right. We also have Parker Kelly, Sens legend. Parker Kelly signs a 4-year, $1.7 million extension with the Colorado Avalanche. Love that. That's great. He's a good, solid depth guy for him. I like Parker Kelly, so don't start yawning.
I've been slowly yawning through the whole thing. I mean, it is currently 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And
Mar did get off a flight today.
I have been awake for, oh no, maths.
We're going to just sit here and silent while you're trying to figure that out. I can go on to the next one because the San Jose Sharks signed William Eklund to a 3-year, $5.6 million bridge. It's a bridge deal that will kick in 2026-27. That's good. Love that. I mean, bridge deal's a bridge deal. I personally, depends on a team's cap situation. San Jose doesn't have a disastrous cap situation. I will say, though, they're going to have the same, I don't want to say the same issue. Yes. No, they are. They're going to have the same issue that the Leafs had. Now, they're probably not going to get hindered, fingers crossed, by a global pandemic flat cap situation like the Leafs were. But there is going to be a period of time for the San Jose Sharks where they have so many contracts to get done because so much of their young core is going to have a lot of expiring ELCs all at the same time. Celebrini and Will Smith are going to be at the same time, which Eklund, I think that deal is going to be right after you're going to have to deal with all these ELCs, as you're going to have to start thinking about him re-signing soon eventually. Sam Dickinson, now they've got Michael Misa, and that ELC is going to be right in around the same time. All within the span of 3-4 years. It's going to be a very busy time to get contracts done or make decisions about players and things like that.
I did the math.
How many hours?
I've been awake for 20 hours.
Right.
New flight. And it is currently on my body clock 2 a.m.
I will say Vancouver Canucks also as well gotten this is such an interesting one. It's just the whole wish-washy about
everything about it.
Brock Besser resigns and signs an extension with Vancouver Canucks, a 7-year deal at $7.25 million. Between trying to re-sign him, not at the start of the season, not having it go well, look into trading him at the deadline, to then him seemingly like he was going to enter free agency.
Yeah.
To then him signing back with Vancouver.
It was such a weird one.
It was a weird one because I'm almost impressed with the loyalty that Brock Besser has to Vancouver Canucks organization, and maybe that money wasn't elsewhere.
Yeah.
But looking at the available free agents, probably absolutely was.
Yeah.
And people who are willing to pay for goal scoring, people who are going to be willing to pay for Brock Besser. the fact that he then goes back to Vancouver is like, I will after everything. Like again, we are not Brock Besser. I would have been like crazy, eh?
We're not Brock Besser.
We're not Brock Besser.
Shit.
My only thing is I was watching TSN. I was watching TSN, the free agency frenzy, as I do every year.
Oh, yes.
Tradition. And they like announced the Brock Besser signing, and then they go to commercial, and they had a little like edit thing for Brock Besser. It was like highlight reel. But why did they chose to do 50 Mission Cap by the Tragically Hip as the song over this? And I was like, well, excuse me, what are we doing? Because not only is that song absolutely about the Toronto Maple Leafs and Bill Barocco and the Curse of Bill, like, right? Brock Besser's American. What are we doing with this Canadian? Why are we doing with the Canadian band of all time, the Tragically Hip?
When it's going.
I was like, and then when they like later on in the show, they had Blow It High Dough, which is way more of a Vancouver Canucks theme song. They had the rights to that. I was like, why didn't you do Blow It High Dough? But anyway, my personal opinion, I was a little bit cheese.
I love when you say that.
What, cheese?
Yeah. It's so funny.
This is another one that's got a laugh from me a little bit. The Corey Perry signs with the LA Kings for a 1 year, $2 million deal with also a $2 million in performance bonus. So like $4 million in earnable money there for Corey Perry. I just have my note here. If the like time loop continues, but Perry on LA, I think it would have been. I think the peak comedy of this is you see which time, like which situation wins out. If it's the LA Kings Edmonton Oilers time loop of playing each other in the first round, and LA Kings loses to Edmonton Oilers in the first round every single year, or if it's Corey Perry to the Stanley Cup final. So LA Kings. I think the ultimate funniest outcome of this all, but it looks unlikely with the rest of the LA's signing. Some of them are a little. But the funniest outcome of all time is Corey Perry on the LA Kings. LA Kings, Edmonton Oilers time loop. They play in the first round again. LA wins. LA makes it to the Stanley Cup final, loses with Corey Perry.
Oh, a girl can dream.
I think that would be the funniest.
That would be deep.
That would be the funniest outcome. Personally, for me, I think that's the funniest outcome. Another goalie off the market here with Dan Vladar signs a 2-year, $3.5 million deal with the Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers once again trying to take another jab at solving their goaltending issue, which is reoccurring for them. They have yet to figure it out. And I am surprised with as many first-round picks as they seem. They had a couple. The first-round picks that they had that they, again, did not pick. I don't believe.
Holding.
I don't. The way that I'm doing this is.
This is really fun because
they don't. Yes, I was right. They did not draft a goalie,
dude,
in this year's draft. And now I did do quite a bit of research on the goalie prospects for this year's draft. It's a little special project. There was some like Ravensburger in my mind is the highest one there. Now Carolina did take. Oh my god, I can't remember his name. I feel really bad about it. There was a Russian that Carolina took. No, not Carolina. Columbus took above Ravensburger in the first round. I could look this up so easily. Pyotr Andreyev. Yeah. That they took.
Oh my god, it's a child. That's an actual baby.
They're all like 18.
I know, but like when they just look like a newborn.
But yeah, he was like, Ravensburger was my kind of like crown jewel, and again, like Philadelphia had two picks. They had 2 picks. They could have potentially looked at moving them, like Nesbitt. Again, maybe the interest wasn't there with trading them. I honestly have a rumor, like not a rumor, but have an inkling because the Islanders were very high on James Higgins, and when he started to fall, I believe their GM was like, "Oh, we were potentially looking at trading up or trading down, like trading to acquire another first round pick." They made the deal with Dobson, and they were looking to maybe trade higher up. And then Higgins went 7th to Boston, and I think potentially Philadelphia would have been that team.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that would have been, and you would have tried to get Higgins at 12. You're yawning again, but that's just my opinion. But I still don't get it with Danny Briere, where I was like, and yes, you could potentially, like, Vladar was a great backup in Calgary, but you kind of need a starter, and Vladar is not a starter. Like, he was a perfectly fine backup goalie. And I think also as well as you need to develop a goalie, and there's a timeline to that. And the fact that they did not pick a goalie in this draft makes me nervous because you can't always rely on acquiring them through trade or through free agency, because sometimes the market isn't there and the market gets thin. And yes, maybe sometimes you don't know with draft picks potentially, but you develop a goalie.
You have more control.
You have more control, and then also like there's a little bit more predictability of what's available because we've seen through the past couple of seasons that there's just been a lack of goaltenders that have been available out on either the trade or the free agency market. So another big free agency piece off the board was Vladis Gavrikov going to the New York Rangers, signing a 7x7 deal. Not as much as I could have seen him going for. Is like one of the very few high quality defensemen out there. I think TSN had him predicted at an $8 million cap hit, and they were saying that was generously low, and he could be going for more, but he signs a 7x7 with New York Rangers. Connor Brown signs a $4x3 million with a deal with the New Jersey Devils. I like that for New Jersey.
Yeah, I just don't like.
You don't like him leaving Edmonton?
No, I just don't like New Jersey.
Oh. I like that deal because Connor Brown is a solid player. Solid player. Again, one of those more Alex Kerfoot types, can kind of play a little bit everywhere in the lineup. And also as well, has been around the block, comes with experience playing Toronto, Ottawa, Edmonton, has had been to the Stanley Cup final twice with Edmonton.
Yeah.
Playoffs with Toronto. Was he on that Calder team? I can't remember if he was on that Calder team or not, or if he was already on the Leafs at that point. Ottawa for a little stint. I believe he also was a Washington Capital for a little while as well. But
easy boy.
Yeah, he's been around, and I think New Jersey Devils young team. Familiarity there with Keefe. They overlapped in Toronto. I believe. Yes, maybe.
Mayha?
No. No, did not. So there is no familiarity with Keefe.
Oh.
So no, so he didn't win the Calder. I'm making Connor Brown seem younger than he is. You're welcome, Connor Brown, I guess. But I did have his career right in terms of every team he's played for. Can you tell I've looked at the Connor Brown DB page?
Maybe.
I thought he overlapped with Keefe, but he did not, because Keefe was 2019-2020 season, and he was already in Ottawa at that point. That was his first season in Ottawa.
Close enough.
Babcock was 2018-2019. But so I was gonna say there's familiarity with Keefe, but there was not, unless. Oh no, there is on the Marlies.
There we go.
There is some familiarity with Sheldon Keefe. I was like, yeah, familiarity with Sheldon Keefe there. Because they overlapped on the Marlies there. So, yeah. I don't know. I like that. I bring some experience to a young New Jersey Devils team. I think he was on TSN and he said, "Oh, those Hughes brothers are pretty good. Excited to play with them." And I was like, I wonder. I do wonder if he will play up with Hughes. Maybe depends on injury. I again do not know enough about the New Jersey Devils to say that in the lineup. But Tanner Jeannot signs with the Boston Bruins for a 5-year, $4.3 million deal. That looks like a lot of money, a lot of term for what Tanner Jeannot, which is people seem to think like teams are willing to give him more money than he's worth. Again, also as well though, Boston is going through a rebuild. We can say that with joy.
I'm thrilled.
The Toronto Maple Leafs signed Michael Pezzetta to a 2-year, 7.87 point, 2 years.
Exactly.
2-year, $787.5 million deal. He's all right. It's why question mark, but not good. That's just, again, when you're friends with Habs fans, you hear complaints about Michael Pezzetta all the time.
Yeah.
He, at that cap hit though, variable in the AHL. If he clears waivers, which could always possible, but also as well, no skin off your back. Yeah. I think the fact that he comes with term potentially could not have teams not claim him off, not claim him off waivers. He's a depth option for sure. I hate using this snot and grit there with him. Fought Ryan Reeves this year.
Yeah.
That's my only thing though, is if he essentially fills the role of Ryan Reeves and is younger than Ryan Reeves. This makes Ryan Reeves redundant. Because you're paying Ryan Reeves more than you're paying Michael Pezzetta. Can we do, like, that's my only thing, right? And Michael Pezzetta from Toronto, grew up a Leafs fan. Once again, there is a plenty full of pictures that have been now shared to social media of him in a Leafs jersey, and I'm like, oh, we're doing this.
Passion maxing.
We're passion maxing.
As they should.
I mean,
it would?
Potentially. I mean, no one on the Florida Panthers was a Panthers fan.
Well, maybe that's where we're going.
Too many passion have. Joel Armia signs with the LA Kings for a 2-year, $2.5 million deal. Open from a Montreal perspective, fine with Montreal losing it. Montreal fans should say not me, fine, but Montreal fans should be fine with losing Joel Armia because you open spots there for players like Owen Beck to have a full-time NHL slot.
Yeah.
Available for him to earn, obviously, but that space is now available. Yeah. When it seemed to kind of not be. Is this my phone? Oh. Oh, okay. But yes, this is one where I went really. Ryan Lindgren to the Seattle Kraken for 4 years at $4.5 million. That is too much money. I have said this so many times. We have Jade who writes for Offside, who is also covers the Seattle Kraken. And I said to her, I was like, how do you follow this team at all? Like, how do you understand them? Because there's been so many moves that they've made through this off season where I'm like, you're doing what now?
You sure?
You want to, this does not make sense to me, but okay, you do whatever you'd like. It's fine, whatever. Sure. All right. Yeah. Give Ryan Lindgren $4.5 million for the next 4 years. As if New York Rangers fans weren't begging to get rid of him and then celebrated when he was gone at the deadline. And that was a team who probably could have used with getting a higher draft pick than they did. Yeah. Except that one was the one that then went to Vancouver. But anyways, in the JT Miller deal. But yes, Nick Bukestad signs with the St. Louis Blues for 2 years at $1.75 million. Cool, fine, whatever. Parker Witherspoon signs with the Pittsburgh Penguins for 2 years at $1 million. Cool. Played for Boston last year. Was there. Sorry, it's Boston. Sometimes I'm like, they had such a rough end to their season. I was like, well, they had a team. There's a Don Sweeney quote from today that says that the roster has a lot of promise. I say, what promise? David Pastrnak is good. He's not that good. David Pastrnak is not God.
Like, I'm not. What are they promising?
Yeah. Capo Kakinen signs a 1-year, $1.15 million with Montreal Canadiens. Depth goaltender.
Yeah.
Because they got rid of Kid and Primo. They need someone in Laval.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a fully variable amount, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close to pretty variable. Like, it's not your $150,000. Yeah. That can't be buried in the AHL. At that, but well, whatever. Jordan Harris, after not being issued a qualifying offer by the Columbus Blue Jackets, signs with the Boston Bruins. Numbers in around a 1-year deal at $875,000, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I did not have it written down, but I think that's what it is. Brandon Tanev signs a 3-year, $2.5 million deal with the Utah Mammoth. I'm gonna say it. Glad it's not a Toronto. I'm glad he didn't sign with Toronto. There was, like, as much as people are gonna be like, but the Tanev brothers reunited on the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're from Toronto. Love Chris Tanev. Love what he brings to the lineup.
Yeah.
There would not have been space for Brandon Tanev though.
No.
Left winger, just it's weird because we didn't have the left side depth for a very long time in Toronto. And now we almost have too many on the left. And I think so much of that is because Mitch Marner is gone. Like, that's almost such a huge hole that it totally shifts it totally changes the way the right side of your lineup looks. Because you could move William Nylander up to play with Austin Matthews, but like you need more on that second line with John Tavares. You just do. And anyways. Because you're not playing Brandon Tanev is not your second line left winger.
No. So
you're adding him to an already crowded left side on your bottom six. Ottawa signs Ollie Lexell to essentially a minor two-way contract that leaves him in with a guaranteed $500,000. Nate Schmidt signs a 3-year, $3.5 million with the Utah Mammoth. Huge payday for him. Good old OEL effect there. Wins a cup, goes to Utah. Utah pays him. Keep an eye on Utah though. Especially they said they were going to make some big moves going into this year. They acquired JJ Peterka and they seem to keep getting better. Detroit signs Jacob Bernard Docker for a year at $875,000. Love this for Detroit. Big fan of JVD, especially when he was in Ottawa, then gets a high ankle sprain, and then got traded to Buffalo in the Josh Norris deal. But signs with Detroit. Love it. Adds depth to their blue line. I don't know what their blue line looks like in terms of like what that does to Justin Holl, but they are paying him $3 million. I think it's 3.1 actually, isn't it? Or is it 3.3? But
Justin Holl.
Nick Perbix to the Nashville Predators for $2.275 million. Sure. All right. Okay. So we get to some of these deals, and I'm just like, okay, all right. Cody Ceci to the LA Kings for 4 years for $4.5 million. That is an overpay for Cody Ceci. That is too much money for Cody Ceci. I know we made jokes when he was traded to Dallas that you're paying a first-round pick for Cody Ceci because Mikhail Granlund was also there. But that is a lot of money to pay for Cody Ceci. That's too much money to pay for what Cody Ceci is, especially when you're the LA Kings and you traded Jordan Spence away for you traded Jordan Spence away for nothing. Essentially nothing. Very little. You traded him away for very little. And like, it was so strange because LA King essentially had built a blue line that was like, hey, look, we are still a solid blue line without Drew Doughty, and then they get Drew Doughty back, and they're like, well, now we don't need this blue line because we have Drew Doughty back. They also, LA Kings also, do you think Brian Dumoulin going from Anaheim to LA even has to move? Like, do you think he's gonna have to move? I don't think he's gonna have to move his house.
Surely.
You know, Brian Dumoulin to the LA Kings for a 3-year deal at $4 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Anton Forsberg to the LA Kings, where he will probably back up Darcy Kemper. 2-year deal at $2.25 million. Fine. All right. It's less than what Ottawa was paying him on his previous contract, which is my biggest. I literally had to look that up because I knew he was in around that $2.5 million range. It was 2.75 in Ottawa. I literally looked at it, I was like, that seems like a lot for Anton Forsberg. And then you were like, he was paid 2.275. I actually don't know what Darcy Kemper is getting paid, so maybe like put the two of them together, it's a fine number, whatever, for a tandem. But Jonathan Drouin to the New York Islanders for 2 years at $4 million. I hope, because Drouin was coming off some pretty hot seasons in Colorado, back playing with Nathan MacKinnon. I do hope that maybe you're putting him up there. Again, this is me making assumptions that I do not fully understand about New York Islanders and the way they're going to look. But I do hope you're putting him up there with Matt Barzal.
Ooh.
Because then maybe people will pay attention to Matt Barzal again.
Yeah.
Because people aren't talking about Matt Barzal enough, and some of it is just because like New York Islanders haven't had a ton of offense to speak of, but like I feel like
people have like stopped talking about him.
Yeah. I think,
bring back.
I would like to think if he was maybe on another team who structure their play a little bit different than the New York Islanders do, and maybe he was in a different market than the New York Islanders.
Yeah.
Would Matt Barzal, hypothetical universe situation here going on, would Matt Barzal be getting Team Canada Olympic looks? At least in the same way that they're talking about, they keep asking Matthew Knies if he's, and I know some of that is because Matthew Knies has represented Team USA at the Olympics before, back when NHL players could go, so it was just essentially like college students and guys who play in Europe on Canada and the US at those Olympics. But like, and I do understand that's partially the reason why they're asking Matthew Knies, is like he's gone to the Olympics before for Team USA, but like they keep asking, being like, do you think you're going to go to the Olympics? And it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't think Matthew Knies is going to be going to the Olympics. Hate to break it to you guys. As much as we would love to see Matthew Knies at the Olympics again.
And it's just Matthew Knies and Joseph Hall. We just put them on the ice and say, just gold medal, do whatever you want.
Like that episode of The Office. Office Olympics.
Yeah.
But like I would Matt Barzal though be getting asked those same questions if he was in a bigger, it doesn't have to be a Canadian market, just has to be bigger.
I think, yeah.
And also on a team that like actually not better than mid maybe, but also just like plays a more offensive style of play where like has the opportunity to score more. But because I feel like we never are talking about Matt Barzal.
No. Even I've like noticed.
It's one of those guys.
Don't think about him as much.
Yeah. Maybe we should all just be thinking about Matt Barzal more.
Surreal.
Radek Faska returns to the Dallas Stars, signing a 3-year, $2 million extension. Cool, whatever. Moving on. Cole Key to the Winnipeg Jets for 1 year at $1 million. Tanner Pearson also to Winnipeg for the same amount on the same contract. Cool, whatever. Moving on. John Leonard to the Detroit Red Wings, 1 year at $775,000. Cool, moving on. Mikael Granlund to the Anaheim Ducks, 3 years at $7 million. Cool. Mikael Granlund's good. Offense to Anaheim. Interesting that he picked Anaheim. Could be because they offered the most money. Yeah. You never know if it was like he actually wants to go play for the Anaheim Ducks,
or if they were like, we will give you more than everyone else.
Or if it was we will give you more than everything else deal. Just only because I don't think I would personally right now in this situation want to go play for the Anaheim Ducks. But that's just me, who is not Mikael Granlund. Matt Murray, as in the Matt, because there's two goalies, Matt Murray, who are both Canadian. Matt Murray is in the Matt Murray who played on the Toronto Maple Leafs last year.
Leafs Matt Murray.
Leafs Matt Murray. No longer Leafs Matt Murray. Goes to the Seattle Kraken for a 1 year, $1 million deal. Love this for him, because we knew last season was kind of a, can you actually still play NHL games? And he can. He showed that when both Woll and Stolarz were there with injury. He was really solid in the AHL with the Marlies all season, has returned, and it's a feel-good story, though, to watch him move on and get trust from another organization, or at least able to sign a deal outside of the Leafs organization after his hip surgery, like after, you know, going to Ottawa, dealing with stuff in Ottawa, getting hurt, like getting then traded to Toronto, getting hurt, having hip surgery, being out basically a full season, having it been like a year and a half since he last played an NHL game. He got like a win and a shutout with Toronto. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, it's nice to see him back.
And then now being able
other teams have been
are interested in him, right? Because I'm sure the Leafs maybe potentially would have had no problem signing him again and having him play another game with the Marlies, and having kind of a goalie situation going on there with that, and, you know, helping with development, things like that. But it's nice to see that other teams were paying attention to that and how he was playing, and we're like, hey, you know, still makes, you know, but good for him. Speaking of goalies as well, Alex Lyon to the Buffalo Sabres, 2-year deal at $1.5 million. You're intimately familiar with the Buffalo Sabres goalie situation.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I mean, I'm happy not because he's going to the Sabres, but just because
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is not bearing the weight of the world.
Yeah. So now they both have to suffer equally. Also, I like the Sabres. Good luck to him, though. He's gonna need it. But no, it's one of those where I'm like, I can get behind that. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch him play, not to witness the results. But no. Huge day for Alex Lyon and Split. I'm excited for it. It could end up better, but it is also the Sabres. So you do have
the Buffalo Sabres.
It's the Buffalo Sabres.
Nico Sturm, who was previously with the Florida Panthers. I said he was one of those names where it was like, I don't think they'll be able to hold on to him because they just don't have the money. He goes to the Minnesota Wild for a 2-year, $2 million deal. Good for Minnesota.
Yeah. Good for Minnesota.
I have always been high on the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, we know. Well aware.
Philip Kurashev to San Jose Sharks for 1 year, $1.2 million deal. Good. Was not issued a qualifying offer by the Chicago, but good for this. Ottawa Senators signed Lars Eller to a 1 year, $1.25 deal. Again, Steve Stamkos having himself a week.
Yeah.
This is a great move. Love this deal. Love this deal. Again, I will probably be writing up in the next week or so little thing with the Ottawa Senators on this sort of stuff. I think Ottawa has added more than they've lost through the free agency period so far. You know, I think re-signing Clocher was a big one, but now you get Lars Eller, who has played really well between Pittsburgh and Washington last year. Another veteran voice in that room. Yeah, I will say as well. Which sometimes you're like, too many cooks in the kitchen, but I think it's fine with Ottawa the way they are. They're still
the right amount of cooks.
I think the right amount, because like outside of, well, you had Nick Cousins, but like before last year when you added Nick Cousins, like, and other names, like outside of Claude Giroux, The like next oldest guy that you had where it was like a voice of leadership was Thomas Chabot, and Thomas Chabot's the 2015 draft pick.
Yeah.
Which is funny because everyone, like myself included, always keeps forgetting that Thomas Chabot is a 2015. Like,
I keep thinking he's way old.
I keep thinking he's way older too.
I keep thinking he's like granddad.
But no, he's not. He's just been in Ottawa, locked in the CTC basement since 2015 draft.
What living in Ottawa does to you?
Yeah, it's like the Morgan Riley effect. You just are there long enough through multiple different periods of the team that people think that you're older than you are.
Yeah, you're older than the team itself.
Well, you can't really say that about Morgan Riley. That makes him like through that theory like over 100 years.
I mean, the guy's been
the concept of Morgan Riley.
The guy's been through it. The concept of Morgan Riley predates the throwing of names. Fun fact. Trust me.
Both Philip Tomasino and Connor Dewar re-signed with Pittsburgh. Tomasino signs a 1 year, $1.75 million deal, where Dewar signs a 1 year, $1.1 deal, which I believe is the same that he was on last year. I can be normal with Dewar. I promise I can't. I totally didn't, freak out when he wasn't issued a qualifying offer. I think that scared me that they weren't issued qualifying offers because if they were issued qualifying offers, I believe it either had to be the qualifying offer or a greater amount. So then by not issuing the qualifying offer, you then can sign them for less than the qualifying offer.
Yeah.
The Leafs do lose what seems like an eternal figure in their forward group, Pontus Holmberg, to the Tampa Bay Lightning for 2 years at $1.55 million. R.I.P. Pontus Goldberg. William Nylander's in St. Tropez right now with Rasmus Sandin and his brother and Alex Nylander. Does he know that Pontus Holmberg has signed with the Tampa Bay?
I hope not to ruin his holiday.
William Nylander, check your phone. Mitch Marner's no longer a Leaf, and Pontus Holmberg's in Tampa now.
Don't, because everyone knows. I like Pontus Holmberg a lot. Did
I totally skip?
You did skip that.
I skipped Jake. Okay, we'll cycle back the rest of it. I just realized what I've done. I was like, wait a minute. There was a couple other guys leaving Toronto that I want to talk about. We can do them all in one.
Yeah. I love Pontus Holmberg.
I love Pontus Goldberg.
Pontus Goldberg.
Really great at drawing penalties.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate, really great at drawing penalties. He's going to do it to an even higher degree in Tampa because he's not on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
No.
It was one of those things where even Steve Dangle made a joke about it, where it's like the Leafs lineup could be whatever you want. Pontus Holmberg's just going to always be there.
Yeah. No. And I, because I've been on an airplane all day, I didn't know about this.
And then I had to tell you while you're sitting in my living room.
Yeah. I had a bit of a, I think, breakdown. Is a good way to put it?
You reacted fine.
I had to sit down and then threaten to do drastic things.
Fair enough. Also leaving Toronto, Alex Steeves and Nick Abruzzese. Not returning to the Marlies. Alex Steeves, who has multiple records for the Marlies franchise, including most points and goals of all time, signs with the Boston Bruins for 1 year, $850,000. That is a one-way deal, which believes me and leads me to make me think that he will be getting full NHL minutes in Boston, potentially, which is something he never quite was able to get in Toronto with the Leafs. He was like the ultimate quadruple A player in terms of he was so good at the AHL level and always would get the chance, would always be the first guy called up in terms of injury for Toronto, up to the Leafs, and would play 1 or 2 games, would have great games, but then when it was time, when the player that he was filling in for, or when the guy came back from injury, he was always then one of the first sent down, and it was just that internal struggle, and could never get a solid chunk of time up in the NHL. Scored his first NHL goal this past season when he was called up. So and Abruzzese signs with the Tampa Bay Lightning on a 2-way deal. So still seems like he will probably spend most of the season in the AHL with Syracuse. But
I just hate everything.
I don't know if the fireworks are coming through. It is Canada Day, and we may just get fireworks in the background of the rest of this episode.
And they're just celebrating my arrival into the great nation of Canada.
Detroit also as well signs James Van Riemsdyk to a 1-year, $1 million deal with $750,000 in performance bonuses. Detroit really cornering the market on acronyms there with JVD and JVR.
I'm gonna live in it.
I love this. I love that for Detroit. I will say though, we now have to play Detroit 4 times a year. It means we have to play former Leaf JVR 4 times. I keep track of these things because he did always do well against Toronto when Columbus would come and play. There was that Adam Fantilli hat trick game that we don't
remind me.
John Klingberg to the San Jose Sharks for 1 year at $4 million. That seems like a lot of money for John Klingberg. I also looked at that and went, hey, whoa. But reminder, San Jose Sharks had about $20 million to get up to the salary floor because they had a lot of space. They had like the most space out of anyone. But the thing is there is a salary floor. You need to reach a threshold. And the reason why that seems so high is 1-year deal. They needed to hit that threshold.
John Klingberg 8x8.
That's insane. You have to still keep it realistic as a value.
8x8?
No, but that's why you look at that and you're like, that's a lot of money to be paying John Klingberg of all people. But
at least it's not
John Klingberg, Timothy Liljegren,
Diva.
I kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
Adam Gaudette also to the San Jose Sharks on a 2-year, $2 million deal. This is now Adam Gaudette always interests me as someone who's spent a season covering the Ottawa Senators. Adam Gaudette interests me because he had a career year. He was scoring a lot of goals. He had a career year for goals for him, but also as well he had such a high shooting percentage that I don't know if his past season is replicable for him again, or if it was just one of those weird one-offs where he was like, I'm just going to shoot the puck every time I have it on my stick. And just by shooting so much, he then was getting pucks in the net.
Yeah.
Because the more darts you throw at the dartboard, the more likely you're going to have a bullseye. So I don't know if that's the case. Interests me. Will be something to keep an eye on in San Jose. Especially also as well, there's such high talent there in San Jose. That's so young, right? There's so much talent in San Jose that potentially, in terms of some of the players that you have there, if Adam Gaudette keeps up his plan of just crazy high shooting percentage, potentially now he's not going to play the top line minutes. I honestly doubt it. But further down through, if he's just there whipping the puck at the net, and he's just like, you have these really high skill players around you, could be pretty good.
Yeah.
He also was really solid on the power play for Ottawa, so potentially could add a boost there for San Jose. I don't know. I'm interested. Interested in that. Vitek Vanacek signs with the Utah Mammoth at a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. There's your backup.
Yeah.
Goaltender. They have a solid backup goaltender in Utah now. I shouldn't say solid, they have a backup goaltender in Utah now.
Yeah.
Vitek Vanacek, which is what they needed. Also as well, New York Rangers avoid an issue here with re-signing Will Cooley to a 2-year, $3.9 million deal. There was an offer sheet candidate right there, though. And Will Cooley potentially have been offer sheeted. Was unsure if New York was going to get that deal done. They do. They managed to. Mike Riley to the Carolina Hurricanes for 1-year, $1.1 million deal. I always have said, can we have Mike Riley on the Leafs for the bit?
Done, because I just read that. And I think it's a combination of my lack of glasses
and also just
lack of sleep.
M. Riley too.
I genuinely thought that said Morgan Riley, and I was like, shit. What
That low of money too.
I was like, what have I missed?
At that low of money too.
I go on one plane.
I say Mike Riley to the Leafs for the bit. You have two M. Rileys spelt the same way. Then what do you do? Do you put M. Riley? Like, does someone wear like the way with the E?
You have M. Riley.
The PDs in Vancouver. Do you have like an M. Riley and then just a Riley?
No, you have M. Riley and Mo Daddy.
We're not. Morgan Riley's new legal name is Mo Daddy.
Avoids confusion.
I'm looking up what number he wore. Where's his Oh, all low numbers. I was about to be like, oh, did he wear like, I don't know why I thought he wore like 43 or something. I don't know who wore 40.
That'd be really funny.
I would have laughed. Absolutely. I think would have done it for the humor.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, would have done it for, like,
you have to commit to the bit.
Do it for, I say do everything for the bit. Ryan McLeod re-signs with Buffalo Sabres, 4-year, $5 million deal. Love that. Great.
Love
Perfect.
that.
Incredible.
I'm thrilled.
Good for Buffalo. Good for him. One of those like good, solid. Justin Brazeau, a 2-year, $1.5 million deal with Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
There's so little big fish left to fry in free agency this year that so many of these deals they've been done. You are going to forget that they've happened come September, October. You're going to get to preseason and the start of the season, like preseason games, and you're going to get to the start of the season, and you're going to be watching a team, and you're going to be watching maybe even your team, and you're going to be like, wait a minute, when did we get this? When did we get this guy? Or you're going to be watching another team, and you're going to be like, when did Vitek Vanacek go to the Utah Men? Right? When was, like, all those little things. Simon Holmstrom to the New York Islanders for 2 years at 3.75. I don't think I ever got a solid number. I don't know if that was like 1 year was this number, but that you can't do that. I don't know if they were like unsure. There's some insider things going. Not insider on my part, just like I had TSN on, also was getting like 7,000 tweet notifications. And then also we have the Keandre Miller sign and trade. 2 sign and trades this year. Interesting. Keandre Miller sign. I actually don't know what. Hold on. I need the. There we go. Give me the contract that he's. Here we go. A 8-year deal at $7.5 million, and then was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes for Scott Morrow, a 2026 first-round pick, which is the better one of it's a top 10 protected first-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick, and Carolina gets Keandre Miller. Scary. Keandre Miller's really good.
Yeah.
Carolina got better because, in my personal opinion, Keandre Miller probably better than Brett Burns. So
just a little bit.
That was a huge one. I mean, that's kind of a big blow for New York. There's so many teams where I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna look like. Pittsburgh's one of them. Pittsburgh, I think you kind of addressed that they're gonna be bad. New York Islanders is one where I do not know.
Yeah, that
because they've made moves where I'm like, oh, you're gonna get better. And then they've also made moves where I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
are you still trying to tank for Gavin McKenna? I don't know. Like, to me, Jonathan Drouin makes them better. But also some of these other ones where I'm like,
it's questionable.
Yeah. That's absolutely for sure. Philadelphia Flyers, still a question mark for me there on a lot of things. Zegras, goaltending, whatever. Philadelphia, Rick Tocchet, bald. I don't know.
What everyone does bald.
Jamie Drysdale's head's too big for that.
Bowl trivia secrets. It's horrifying, isn't it?
Absolutely terrifying.
Terrifying, like shiny. Oh,
And on that mental image that has ruined everyone's day,
I'm gonna go to bed.
we're gonna end the show here. I like keep checking to make sure there's like no like notes or no, not notes, but like any other things that come through as my things wind down, but I don't believe there's anything of note. Oh, Kale Clegg to Winnipeg on a two-way deal.
Okay.
Cool. Calgary Flames signed Ivan Prostatov to a one-year contract with an AAV of $950,000. Potential backup there for Dustin Wolf. I believe. Also, as well, I will say as well, Bob McKenzie of TSN has announced his permanent retirement. Not some this weird semi-retirement stuff that he's been doing this year, past 5 years. But which is huge. I mean, Bob McKenzie has been around for a long time. He was kind of the guy on TSN. He was the OG insider for like, kind of made a career, like became the OG insider.
Yeah. He's the OG.
OG. And yeah, all the best to him. Yeah. Wonderful career. Very successful career. Going to miss his insight on World Junior panels. Going to miss him like just cold turkey, dropping deals, dropping contracts, dropping trades. I will never forget last year's like not this past deadline, the deadline before. It was like the final moments of the deadline, like final seconds of the trade deadline, and he's on TSN and he cold turkey, just right out of the blue on TV, announces the Hurdle trade that no one saw coming, like the Hurdle to Vegas trade that no one saw coming. Like, you know, there's guys where you're like, trade war, things sense. Like that, right? Like it was like right around the same time as like both Deweys from Minnesota, or at least Connor Dewar, and it was like everyone he was one of those pieces you could look at, and it was just cold turkey. Thomas, like he just said it, and there was just a silence on the TSN studio. I was like, oh, to be in that room. It was the same way as like when the Brad Marchand, like the reaction to that. Like if you watch the Trade Center TSN Trade Center clip of that dropping, the noise, like both that and the Center one, Sportsnet one, were just like the reactions of everyone else in the room. Like you can hear like the what, but yeah. With that being said, though, we will be back. Will we do it Thursday? We'll see. The schedule kind of goes out the window this time of year from us. We try to keep it pretty regular through the season, but as we kind of hit unpredictability free agent, because Nikolai Ehlers is still on the board, there's still a couple of other pieces on the board. It's just Nicholas Roy with his cat in the Stanley Cup. Oh, that's really cute. He has a cat. Him and Max Domi can bond over being cat guys. I don't know, friendship, the power of friendship. But yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back at some point, the two of us together again. We're not gonna waste the opportunity. No. You'll be getting more than one episode of us in the same room, that's for sure. Oh yeah. But thank you guys so much for listening. In the meantime, you can find the show wherever you get your podcast. You can also follow the show on Twitter at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with the number 4. You didn't even do it on. She has been doing for like a year and a half. Every time I say fourth with the number 4 TH, has been putting the 4 up on camera, and no one has ever gotten the chance to see it. And finally, we're doing this where you get the chance to see it, and she does it under the table. Fourth with the number 4 TH. We are also a show that is presented by Offside News. You can find Offside News on all social media platforms at Offside News Co. You can also find all of the articles, including a lot of free agency stuff, a lot of summer pieces at I also have a CBA piece that should be in the works that I don't know now if I will.
Jazz hands. And
I am putting out articles there. At offsidenewsco.com. If you miss the two of us, or you want to follow along what we're up to while Mars in town, you can follow us over on Twitter at 6 Leaves from Mercy, at Pair B1 for myself. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back. Now what do we say? See, we always have this debate now at the end of the season. We can't see Go Leafs Go.
Golf Leafs Golf.
Leafs Golf is crazy.